So our next speaker is Gordon Inouye, born and raised on the Big Island farmer, businessman, and entrepreneur, graduated from Hilo High School. He's also a graduate of the U.S. Merchant Marine Academy. He's a bachelor's degree in engineering and an MBA. He is on the board of Hefner, as well as the Synergistic Hawaii Ag Council. And he is going to give us an update today on some of the disaster emergency relief projects and programs, including the Puna Flower Power Project. Thank you.
But my name is Gordon Inouye, and I represent the Hawaii Florists and Nursery Association as the Hawaii Island Director. Well, we all remember last year, May 3rd, where the lower Puna eruption started. And I won't go over it, but that went on for a number of days, and many of our members of Hefner in the orchid industry were devastated, and 100% of all the orchid production out of Kapoho was lost. More than 700 homes were lost there, and by the end of August, by the middle of August, the eruption had subsided, and we all stood back and said, well, where do we go from here? What are we going to do with all of our fellow farmers? There are many meetings at their various locations, including here at the PBARC, where we heard from the losses by all of these farmers. We had legislators, government officials, and people from the university and PBARC here hearing what was being said. And everyone really wanted to do the right thing and help in many form of fashion. But we all realized that nothing was going to happen overnight. It does take time. I think there were some pronouncements by public officials about opening up a new ag park and a number of different things. But I think all of us realize that those things are way down in the future and that we needed to do what we could sooner rather than later. The Hawaii Floral Nursery Association had a number of members impacted. So what we did as an organization is we put together an ad hoc committee, and I was nominated to go ahead and see what we could do to privately put together some solutions for our fellow members. And the first step was to identify a place where we could site a new orchid park. And of course, the qualities that Kapoho had are virtually non-existent in a readily available location here on the Big Island. Kapoho was down at sea level. It had about 80 inches of rain a year, about half of what Hilo gets, and many of these nurseries were grown in shade, using shade as opposed to greenhouses, because rainfall wasn't an issue down there, and if there was rainfall, it would readily blow away. Anyhow, private property owners were considered, a number of suggestions made, and clearly when we looked at the map, the shipment company was really the entity that made the most sense. So I went to meet Bill Walter of Shipman and Company, and he immediately said, Gordon, we're empathetic to your efforts. However, I'm retiring in December, and I want you to work with our incoming president, which is Peggy Farias, who's the current president of WH Shipman. So again, August, September, before she even became president of the company, she and I started working, putting together ideas of what we could do. Well, the things that we needed for a nursery was accessibility, water, reasonable access to infrastructure. And again, they have some property down by the ocean, but then building roads and everything else becomes an issue where it would take millions of dollars just to get to it. So that was out of the question. So anyhow, we came up and found some areas that were a good compromise, and we discussed the needs of how to make it a reality. And essentially, cost is one of the major impediments. So we put together a plan where essentially for the first 5 years of a lease, the rent would be very, very low, and then we put together an agreement where Shipman could enjoy the success of the Orchid Park after 5 years. And so we put a basic agreement in place by the end of 2018. Initially, a site along Railroad Avenue, Keough was targeted for the site. And we contemplated at that time putting 10 5-acre parcels, and on the private road, which is Railroad Avenue in Keough. Over here you'll see this is where the Keough High School is located, and that white area there is the Puna rock quarry. In any event, that was the first area we talked about. We had more meetings with the affected growers, and it was feasible, but yet it was all pahoe, and there was quite a bit of land clearing and other things that needed to be done to make it workable for us. The other thing we learned is that the devastation was so great that some of the growers didn't want to go on. I mean, they had enough, They said they threw in the towel. They said enough is enough. Some of them got full-time jobs in other fields and weren't interested in going back. But we still had a number of key growers who really wanted to get back into business, because this is their passion, this is their livelihood. And the one commodity they had is knowing how to grow orchids and grow them very, very well. So by April of 2019, the small group of us decided to form a cooperative to pursue this on a realistic basis. So we got ourselves organized, chartered, bylaws, signed checks to get the operation going, and said that they all pledged that we're going to go ahead with this. The HFNA, Hawaii Flora Nursery Association, is a member of SHAC, the Synergistic Hawaii Agricultural Council. SHAC is made up of 3 major commodity groups, the pie industry, the coffee industry, and the Hawaii Florists and Nursery Association. And fortunately, Eric Tanoi is a member of board, as the president and chairman of SHAC, as well as a representative from HFNA. I also represent HFNA on the SHAC board and as the treasurer. SHAC is a grant writing organization seeking federal, state, county support in efforts to help the industry members. In any event, SHAC wrote a request for a grant offered by the Department of Commerce, which was the Minority Business and Development Grant, and it was designed to help minority farmers as well as those impacted by the eruption to get back in business. The Puna Rock Quarry site, as I showed you earlier, that's Keough here, and this gray area here is where Puna Rock is currently located. Puna Rock is the major supplier of crushed gravel, cinder, and everything else for most of the Puna area, as well as Hilo. Their lease with Shipman limits them to a depth of about 30 feet from ground level, because they don't want to create a big hole in the ground that can't be filled. And they consume 3 to 5 acres of land each year in terms of expansion. And so the challenge they have, as well as Shipman has, is what do you do with the area that they've excavated and mined? And that's where we put all of our heads together and says, let's put a nursery down there where you've got leveled ground, you've got natural security because of the walls of the quarry, and this allows the quarry to expand and the nursery to expand over time as the property grows. And so we all agreed that that was going to be the proposed site for the nursery. This is a blow-up of the area, and we've designated about 6.7 acres of the quarry for the nursery. And we've blown it up a little bit more, and I've got, and again, this is not an actual drawing, but we have 2 greenhouses ordered, and they'll fit somewhere on this right now. The Puna rock is in the area of clearing out this area and grading it so it'll be suitable for nursery going forward. We expect that it'll be probably more toward the north corner. Trade winds blow from west to east, so it'll be vented toward the southwest. A long-term agreement for 20 years has been signed between Shipman and Puna Flower Power, and a short-term lease has been negotiated with Puna Rock in the interim for the site that I've outlined. Hefner has received funding to purchase 2 greenhouses of 19,320 square feet each for teaching and training purposes using the grant funds. These greenhouses will be constructed on the Orchid Park site for future use by the co-op. Hefner has also received funding to install irrigation and tables, to purchase plants for teaching purposes, and develop business plans for growers, and build a quarantine facility for the industry. And all of this will be done at the Puna Rock Quarry. These are the plans for the proposed quarantine facility. It'll be about 1,000 square feet in total. It'll cost $38,000, of which Hefner has already received approval to do it. It'll be submitted to the Department of Agriculture for approval so that it meets the requirements for a quarantine facility. There's probably some adjustments in the design that will have to be made, but it involves 5 different compartments for different shipments, and fully screened in, and a double door going into the access area for the quarantine facility. I'm sorry I didn't fit in right, but I did the best I could. The greenhouse is already completed, and they're going to be shipped and arrive here by the end of this month. The site preparation is underway already by Puna Rock. Puna Rock, of course, is owned by Russell Kuwai. I think most of you are familiar with it. He's also a nurseryman and a member of Hefner also. Construction is scheduled to start of about January 1st, 2020. Puna Flower Power is seeking additional grant funds to complete the nursery and purchase plant stock from the Department of Energy emergency relief legislation. There's currently an application being drafted right now. The PFP will also be applying for access to the emergency loan fund from the Department of Agriculture for working capital. As you're all aware, they extended the application period by another year. So we have until June of 2020 to make an application for it. In any event, PFP hopes to be able to start marketing plants and flowers by the end of 2021, presuming everything goes according to plan. The leadership and directors of PFP, because I speak the most and I've been up front, they elected me president, so I'm a member of the co-op. Joseph Kekedy, whose farm is Paradise Orchids, inundated by the lava flow, is the vice president. Elton Mao, who had a very large nursery in Kapoho, which was also inundated, is our corporate secretary. I'd like to thank the White Florists and Nursery Association first and foremost for their support of the project to put the industry back in place. I'd like to thank my brother Grayson. I'm fully employed by Pacific Floral Exchange, but he grants me the time and opportunity to go after projects like this and work it for the benefit of the industry. And of course, my partners, Joseph and Elton, who have been very, very helpful. Diane Lay from the County of Hawaii has been very instrumental, although we don't have any county funds actively involved in our project thus far. She's made our council people aware of what we're doing, and we're in we're in District 4, I think. That's 3 on the Mackay side of Railroad Avenue. That's what's her name? Not Sue. Sue's on the Mauka side. who's the other very young council? Yeah, Ashley. Ashley Kirkowicz we're in Ashley Kirkowicz's district, and she's aware of our project, and of course very supportive of our efforts. We will be meeting with the chairman of the Department of Agriculture next week on our visit to Hilo, so that we can brief her on where the Orchid Park project is right now. And we have commitment of support from the Department of Agriculture. Obviously, this is right there, Kuleana. So anyway, that's currently where we are. Any questions?
Did you say there were 5 growers in the co-op right now?
At the present time, there are only the 3 growers. There are 2 to 3 additional potential members who are on the fence, and of course, you know, we're open to bring in additional members, but you know, it takes a commitment to become a part of a cooperative, and the dynamics of a cooperative are very challenging in that by nature the growers are very independent individuals, and that's what gives them the courage to be able to go out and start their own nursery and grow it. So bringing these people together and working cooperatively has a lot of unique issues, and thus far we've been able to work it such that everyone seems very pleased with how the dynamics are working, where everyone's contributing for the greater benefit of the members. So as I say, we're open for membership, but like I say, it takes a unique individual willing to make the commitment to help collectively to do it. As I say, right now, all 3 of them are, all 3 of members right now have things to do, but are actively involved in trying to make this happen. The board meets once every 2 weeks because we have so many things going all the time. So, thank you.
Okay, thanks, Gordon. Amazing effort, and so quickly, you know, responding and to such a disaster for our orchid industry. It's very promising. So we have Suzanne online. Hi, Suzanne.
Hi, how are you?
Good. So our next speaker is Suzanne Shriner, and she is the administrator for SHAC, the Synergistic Hawaii Ag Council. She is a grant writer extraordinaire, and that has helped to bring in quite a bit of funds into Hawaii for supporting both Hefner, the papaya industry, and the coffee industries. So Suzanne is also a coffee farmer in Kona. She's president of the Kona Coffee Farmers Association, and she is a second-generation coffee farmer. And Suzanne, you're going to tell us a little bit more about emergency relief projects and programs?
Yeah, and a little bit about SHAC in general as
Great.
well, and where the Hefner funding goes. Can you see my presentation on screen?
Yes.
Okay, great.
And we can see you.
So Gordon did a great job of introducing the projects, some of the projects we're working on. I'm going to try not to duplicate too much of what he's already told you. And I realize I'm the last person before you get out of the room, so I'm also going to try not to hold you up too much. So SHAC, many of you are probably familiar with our programs. We are a consortium of various industry groups working primarily facing towards DC to try and get more money here to our specialty crops. And you can see our vision there in a nutshell really is to expand markets for our growers and increase sales. So, and our membership structure, as you heard from Gordon, he's a board member, Eric Chinoye is a board member. The papaya industry and the coffee industry each also have 2 additional board members that come together. And I work for the board. I'm the administrator of the program, and we also have an accountant on staff. And our primary office is there right in Hilo town, although I'm based out of Kona. Most of our work is on your side of the island. So with our key program and this is the one you're probably the most familiar with, is through the Foreign Ag Service. We get money for the floriculture industry and focus on building exports to Canada. So the Foreign Ag Service gives us money, and this money can't be spent on the mainland. It has to be spent focusing outward on markets. And so in about May of every year, we submit a 100-page grant that includes all the type of marketing activities we want to do on behalf of your industry. It also includes a lot of data about where your exports go that we pull off the government databases. In the second half of that program, there's the MAP program, which is the side you see. There's also a TASK program, which is technical assistance for specialty crops. And floriculture hasn't taken advantage of this grant yet. Both coffee and papaya have. It's up to $500,000 a year for research activities. So I'm targeting this to the researchers in the room. I know that floriculture has an interest in looking at nematode issues, for example, in various disease prevention programs. So if you're a scientist in the room and you have something of interest that is a barrier to export, it's either a phytosanitary issue or it's destroying crops so we can't export them, please come talk to Eric, Gordon, or I, and we'd love to partner on a grant and get you some money to fund your research. So from a grower standpoint, with the market access funding, SHAC gives $68,000 of our annual funding to Hefner to target Canadian buyers. For instance, with the wedding workshops, we brought in reverse trade buyers to look at the workshops and see what they could take back and maybe sell to their clients in Canada. We also run designer workshops. And this year, interestingly enough, we're doing some strategic planning with that money. We're looking at Japan to see if that might not be a more fruitful market versus Canada, and doing a market study there. So from Hefner, we require a 10% copay back. So that's what FAS requires of us. So your board grants us $6,800 to fund these programs. So to touch on what Gordon was looking at with the Minority Business Development Disaster Relief Grant, JAC received almost $500,000 to assist growers with the impacts. This grant recently closed at the end of August. Many of you were probably participants in our program. We did a number of workshops. We did some business planning for folks. And the part of this project that's really going to carry on for all of you is the floriculture demonstration project. And that's the 2 greenhouses that will be housed at the PFP site. We have, I believe Gordon has already looked at ordering a bunch of new plant starts that we can then disseminate back out to the community. And we're going to use that space as a training facility going forward to do workshops and other activities. So stay tuned for that as soon as that greenhouse is fully built, as well as the quarantine space. So that's one benefit to that grant. It's not often that you'll find a grant that will fund equipment. And we got really lucky with this grant in that they were willing to spend a couple of $100,000 to build this equipment on behalf of Hefner. So other disaster relief programs that I wanted to touch on to make sure you're aware of, one is the USDA Bip Program. Many of you have probably already seen Lester Ueda's presentation on WIP. If you haven't, if you're not aware of this, if you were impacted either by the hurricane or by Kilauea, there's a lot of avenues you can go through to get more money out of USDA. So if you didn't qualify for insurance, you can still file a claim now. And I highly recommend you contact Keeson at the FSA office This is not something that SHAC can help with, unfortunately. You need to sit down in person with USDA and your records. If you were lucky enough to qualify for NAP or had crop insurance, they can quite quickly pull those records from your insurance claim and get you more money. So if you receive 60% beforehand, you'll get up to 95% reimbursable now. So it's a significant difference. So like I said, contact Keeson if you have more questions about that. And the next big grant, disaster relief grant that SHAC is working on right now is a Department of Commerce Economic Development grant. And this was part of the disaster relief funding, and it's a pretty complex grant. I'm still working out the details with the DC staff, but it's looking like a lot of our growers who are impacted by the lava could receive funding for quote-unquote restoration of infrastructure, which means if you lost a tractor, you might be able to get another tractor. Not quite that simple, but we are putting together a package. So if you were impacted and you're out a piece of equipment, you're out greenhouses, please give me an email at the address on the bottom of that page, because I'd like to talk to you about including you on the grant. There's some details we're still working out. There is the sliding scale matching funds. It could be 0 that you have to put up. It could be 20%. We're not sure yet. And at this time, projects in Lava Zone 1 and 2 are not eligible. So if you were damaged in Lava Zone 2, your farm is still there. At this time, we can't place any equipment or infrastructure in that zone. They're not allowing us to. We've complained to the mayor's office about that, and we've complained to our legislative staff. So we hope that will change in the near future. We're hoping that Lava Zone 2 will be eligible because it's such a big part of Puna. But at this moment, we're not yet sure. So if you're still in Lava Zone 2, you'd like me to maybe talk to you about this grant, but you're not sure if you're eligible, go ahead and let me know anyway. Contact me anyway, and we can keep you on the list, and hopefully that will change. Okay. And those are the two, the WIP and the EDA grant are the two big outstanding cash programs out there for growers. So keep those in mind if you have any concerns, and please email me if you have questions. And that's my presentation in a nutshell. Are there any questions out there I can answer?
Thanks so much, Suzanne. That was great.
Okay.
Very good.
Thank you, guys.